What is everyone? I hope you're all well. So, as we've gone on through this case, there has been much speculation. Because in the absence of information, all we can indeed do is speculate. And look, the truth is we may not ever know. Because I think that there'll be a lot of us that, if this is said to have been an accident, will we truly believe it? When we've seen the way that law enforcement have handled it, some of the comments that have been made by law enforcement, such as their ego being affected by, the input of Adventures with Purpose making them look stupid, the way that they handled the recovery of the vehicle and lost items from the car, that they then failed to come and collect for some period of time. It was almost like they were being forced to come and clear up their mess. It does lead you to believe that, look, there can be failings, there was failings, and perhaps the easiest way to make them look better is to just simply say that this was a tragic accident, because it then, I suppose, in their eyes will be to draw a line under it so everybody can move forward. And look, it's speculation, but it's speculation off of information. And sadly, the information that we have on the way that this has been handled thus far has not been fantastic. But look, what are the alternatives? What are the things that we have not spoken about? I'm sure other people have spoken about it, but I tend to not look at much of what anyone else is saying because it can interfere with how I feel and how I see things. So this is my kind of theory, if you like, on what could have potentially happened. And for that, we talk about hazing. And for those of you who do not know what hazing is something that has happened for many, many years. It is when students are brought into the fraternities of college, they are challenged, they are given tasks to join them. These tasks can be numerous different things. It can be pain. They have to go through something that causes pain or test their knowledge, almost like an Iron Man, to make sure that they are capable of being a member within the ranks of these groups, if you like. And what has happened over the years, we have seen multiple deaths. Hazings can go wrong. And in recent years, they have indeed done so. And what makes me think that this is a potential to have been a hazing? Well, let's look at the facts of what we know about the party itself. We know that this was a party that was for seniors. It was a senior party. It was a graduation party. It was going into, that transition from school to college, and this is more than likely where hazings would start to happen. It wouldn't be, out of the ordinary for this to happen. We know that there was a lot of people here. We know that there was and this is because Sammy told us that there was friendly fights and things like that, so perhaps fights can be part of hazings. We know that there was water around this area, so it's not out of the ordinary to consider that water could have been brought into the equation. We know that when people have had a few drinks and there's bodies of water, that people can think, let's go swimming, let's go skinny dipping, move towards the water, and all sorts of things. It happens. There was comments made again by Sammy about Kiely's love of water. She loved the water. It was almost like what you'd hear if you'd heard someone who loved the water dying in a boat accident, or if someone died on a motorcycle. They loved bikes. That was their world. They loved motorcycles. My best friend was killed on a motorcycle, and that was one of the things that was said at his funeral about his love of bicycles, almost to make you feel a little bit better about how that person left us. Maybe they were happy at the point with which they left their life. So look, what other things could point you towards thinking that this could be a hazing? And I don't know about you, but I have considered that perhaps that's why the family, well, the mother, has specifically gone down the route of protecting the children, and we're going to call them children because they are, I know they're classed as young adults, but I don't think their brains are quite matured enough. It wouldn't seem that way anyway. And look, I was reading something. It was someone who lives around this area, and they were talking about this family. They were talking about Kylie's mum specifically, and they were saying, look, she's a very, very religious person. More religious than what you'd probably imagine. I've heard the term hippie-ish and things like that. But look, she was deeply religious. And you can hear by some of the things that she says that obviously there is religion in the background. And it makes you wonder whether this makes someone more prone to forgiveness. Now, does she indeed know that there was a hazing that went wrong? Maybe it was something to do with the water. Maybe it was something to do with drinking water or, the car in the water, anything, but hazings pose a risk. That's the whole purpose of them. If hazings were easy, there would be no fun element to it, and there would be no challenge to enter in these fraternities. So they have to be physically or emotionally or mentally challenging. And look, we know that everybody left the party abruptly, and there has been speculation on this, and I think there's been some confusion over why. And that is because people have been led to believe that this party happened within a campground. The campground had a time restriction on it in terms of when they could be noisy, when they could be there, whatever, and there was a sort of a clear-out time. But the party time doesn't seem to coincide with this. And in fact, when you look at where the party was, in what they've called the sanctuary, that's not actually in the realms of that specific campground that would be covered under that ruling. It's further away from that. So look, it would lead you to believe that why would everybody all of a sudden leave around that time? Is that just coincidence that Kylie's phone happened to go dead, or the tracking of that phone was disabled around the time that everybody left? And look, it would seem to be that Kiely was compos mentis at around 11:30. Now, we've been pushed that narrative by some of the close friends to say that she had been drinking. She was shit-faced, was a term that was used. We've got other parents coming. It all seems to be very gauged towards making Kiely seem as if an accident was probable. That's the narrative that you're getting. But let's not forget that off the back end of that, there's a lot of people who have said how smart she was, and the fact that even her own mother had said that she would not drink drive, and she had refused in the past to do so. So, like I said in the last video I did, this is a bit of a catch-22. You're kind of caught between the devil and the deep blue sea. Either she is someone who is responsible enough to say, look, I'm not going to drink drive. I know I've had too much to drink. I cannot drive. I'm not safe to drive, and I'm not going to. And let's not forget, she was offered lifts right towards the end of the night. We was led to believe she was offered lifts. Elsa had said that her friend who was taking her home had offered her a lift. And it does bring into question Sammy and the conversation around her own lift situation. Because why wouldn't she have offered Kiely a lift? Why wouldn't she have said, I'll come back and get you? If she knew she had been drinking, and she, by her own admission, had said that at that stage, Kiely had no lift arranged, again, you got to go down the route of, right, so you didn't think she would drink drive. So you, knowing her as a close friend, so you say, you did not consider that she would drive, which would go hand in hand with the mum's theory that she wouldn't drink drive. So did you lot just get her so wrong? Or were you confident in your thoughts that she definitely wouldn't drink drive? You know, there's a lot going on here. There's a lot to unpack. But I just feel that the protection of these adolescents around here and the way that the mum specifically is handling it, as aforementioned, seemingly apologetic, forgiving them. She said some things that we saw in, again, my last video, this where she has had to correct herself. And she made a statement in another news report, and it was the bones of it were that these girls have been so good to come forward and speak, and it's kind of made out like they could be putting themselves at risk doing so. You know, there is a consequence to doing so. And then she quickly backpedaled and went in a different direction. Well, all of these little slip-ups that she kept saying regarding the is and was and, you know, the consequences of the friends, this points towards knowledge. You know, this points towards knowledge. And when you hear Lindsay, by her own admission, again stating that there is kind of honour in silence, this again points towards knowledge. And I do feel that when you look at the fact that this was a party, there was children, there was alcohol, there was water, you know, we're going, again, this transition from school to college, that hazings could have well played a part in this. And did one just go horribly, horribly wrong? You tell me, what do you think is the likelihood of a hazing being the cause of Kiely's demise here? And look, if indeed this was simply a tragic accident caused by something along this road, then, you know, is the mum right to forgive? Is it, you know, is she wrong in thinking, look, there is no good that's going to come of this? This was an accident. This is something, this is almost tradition-like, that children go through this. Hazing happens, it's happened before, and it will continue happening way into the future. And sadly, with risk, becomes, you know, at times an accident, and we have a dead child on our hands. But by making them, by punishing them for something that is almost tradition-like, what comes of it? What good comes of it? And look, we can all say, look, if someone dies, if someone's tragically killed, and, you know, there is people involved in facilitating that, even if they don't look to do it. Look, it's no different than manslaughter. People get charged with manslaughter because they kill someone and they don't mean to do it. You know, there is negligent homicide, where someone causes the death of someone basically for not looking after them, for knowing that something could potentially happen, and they could have stopped it from happening. They failed to do so, and there we have it. This case, even if it's ruled as an accident, how can anybody say that nobody was, you know, responsible for it? We've got a young girl who was driving illegally. We've got a girl who was drinking illegally. We've got older children around her, young adults around her, who were indeed supposedly, so you would think, supposed to be looking out for her. And they didn't. They left. They left her alone. And there's no excuse for it. By their own admission, Sammy, yourself, you said that this was not a great party in terms of you was uncomfortable. It had grown exponentially beyond even your realm of comfort. And you was an older girl. You were someone who you yourself said that you were an outgoing girl. You were used to these parties. Why would you leave your friend, your 16-year-old friend who you knew had been drinking, you knew she was drunk, to sleep in her car on her own in the woods, or to risk driving drunk, or get a lift with some dodgy stranger because you knew no one else was there? who she knew, and you knew she didn't have a lift arranged? Or is it simply that whatever happened had already happened? And that is indeed why the party ended early. Now, I don't know about you, but I have not seen or heard, and obviously I've been young, you guys have been young, you watching this video, you've been young, if you're not still young. Tell me where there has ever been a party with 50, 60, 100, 200, 300, 400 people, and it's ended like that.